Daniel stood on the edge of the dirt road, the early morning mist still clinging to the hollers of the hills that he called home. His mother, a strong woman with lines of hardship etched into her face, held his younger siblings close. The sight of them, wide-eyed and uncertain, was like a punch to Daniel's gut. He was barely 18, but with his pap gone, taken by a bullet over a senseless feud, he was now the man of the family. "Now you mind yourself, Danny," his mother said, her voice steady, though her eyes glistened. "Don't you let that city change you none." "I won't, Ma," Daniel promised, as he hoisted up his worn bag over his shoulder. "I'll send money just as soon as I can." The trip to Chicago was weary and long. The bus rattled along the so-called hillbilly highway, a path worn by countless Appalachians before him seeking a new life in the factories of the North. Daniel stared out the window, watching the rolling hills give way to flat lands and straight roads. Chicago was a different beast altogether. The buildings stretched up to the sky, blocking out the sun with their steel bones and glass skin. The noise was constant, a roar to rival the rivers back home. Daniel felt small, but he wasn't no coward. He'd come for work, and work he would find. The first few days were the toughest for Daniel. He trudged from factory gate to factory gate, his accent marking him an outsider, and each rejection stung. But his pap's words echoed in his mind. "Don't you back down, Danny. You're as good as any man." Prejudice was a shadow that followed Daniel. Some folks sneered at his hill accent, others at his simple clothes. He slept in a cramped boarding house, the bed bugs feasting as he dreamed of home. Still, he didn't give up. His family's well-being was a fire inside of him that no Chicago wind could extinguish. One day, Daniel met an old-timer named Joe at dinner. Joe had come up from Kentucky years ago, and he saw a bit of himself in the young man. "You gotta be twice as tough and thrice as stubborn," Joe advised between bites of his sandwich. "But don't let the bitterness take root. That's the real battle." Daniel took the words at heart. He found work at a meat packing plant, a job that was as tough and unforgiving as the steel rails that crisscrossed the city. The work was grueling and the hours long, but with each paycheck, he felt a swell of pride. He was making a difference, sending money home, ensuring his siblings had food on the table and a chance to go to school. "Heard you're saving for your kin," a co-worker named Hank said one day. "That's noble. Most here just drank their pay away." Daniel nodded. "They're counting on me, and I can't let them down." Months passed, and Daniel climbed the ranks at the plant, his hard work not going unnoticed. And the letters from home were full of news. His youngest brother took to reading like a duck to water, and his sister won the county spelling bee, and the garden was the envy of the holler. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. One winter's night, a group of men quartered Daniel outside of a bar, and they mocked his origins, calling him a hillbilly, and one swung a punch. Daniel's heart pounded, but he stood his ground, fighting back with the same determination that carried him all those miles from home. And the men left, bruised and chastened, and Daniel walked away with a split lip and a fierce pride. "You didn't back down?" Joe said the next day. patting him on the back. "You done good, kid." Time passed, and the city changed Daniel. But not in the ways that mattered. He grew confident, learned to navigate the urban jungle. But his heart remained rooted in the hills of his birth. When he finally returned home, it was with enough money to fix up the house and buy a patch of land. His mother wept when she saw him, no longer the boy who had left, but a man who had weathered storms and stood tall. His siblings, now grown, looked up to him with admiration and love. "You kept your promise," his mother said, holding his face in her hands. "I did, Ma. I did," Daniel replied, his voice thick with emotion. And as the family sat around the dinner table, the house filled with laughter and stories, and Daniel knew that all the hardships had been worth it.